Hey guys, my name is Ali and I'm a data analytics manager working in Oslo, Norway. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I would become a data analyst in 2021 if I started today. Before we start to look at the blueprint which I have set up on how I would become a data analyst in 2021, I want to take a small look back at my career just for you guys to understand, what is my background and how have I gotten where I am today. So starting out, I did my bachelor's in journalism and I did another one in business. I did two different ones, so I actually don't really come from that much of a technical background. When I got over on my master's, I did it in systems analysis and design, so things got a little bit more business-wise, but still, it's still somewhere in between technical and business. But I'm someone who has come from a business side and become more technical as time has gone by. I started out in software sales at a company called Click, which is the company that delivers ClickView and ClickSense. So in the Gartner quadrant, in the report that comes out every year, who talks about all the different vendors, you have Power BI, you have Tableau, and you have Click, who are the top vendors. And I actually started out in sales as an account manager responsible for Norway. Then I have progressed more into technical roles because I enjoyed working with the technical stuff and I enjoyed the human interaction that was also going on. And through those roles, I have been exposed to a lot of different things. So I started out as something called pre-sales, which is that you assist the salespeople when you want to sell software and you are the technical side in that sale. And then I have gone through a lot of consultancy. So I worked as a business intelligence consultant, senior BI consultant, lead and team lead consultant. And then I have moved over to the client side. I worked as head of data and insights, and right now I work as the head of business intelligence and data services for an international company out of Norway. And I worked with Click, Power BI, Tableau, and a lot of different backend tools. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I come from a business background and I have transitioned into more technical roles. And then I have used, more of my businessness and my interpersonal skills mixed with the technical stuff, which has exposed me to a lot of different situations. And that is how I have learned a lot of the data backend, data modeling stuff that I know, which is more technical, and a lot of more the business side stuff, which is more data analysis and more analytics towards the business. And because what I'm going to talk about today, that comes from the mindset of someone who didn't necessarily start out as a very technical person, but someone who has picked it up along the way. And that is why I've chosen what I'm going to present today. So like I've written here, what does this mean? I've been exposed to a lot of different roles, situations, and had to learn different technologies over time. And with all of that being said, one of the most important things that I want to talk about today, and that I would focus a lot more if I started out today, is to ensure that I keep a focus. Because there is a saying that goes, Jack of all trades, master of none. And that's something that I think happens to some of you guys today. I think you guys expose yourself to so many different tools, and you guys watch my videos, and then you watch someone else's videos, and someone else, and they talk about this technology, and they talk about this technology, and you read this job, and they have that technology, and this, and this, and this. So you're going in the direction of someone who is, like I said, a jack of all trades. Just to exemplify, a lot of you guys are starting out, and what you are right now is that you know a little bit about something. So let's call it data analysis. You're starting out, you're starting to get your feet wet. And then as you guys are getting exposed to this area, there's a lot of different technologies that you guys hear about. There's a lot of things that you guys can pick up on. There's just a lot of information. A lot of stuff is just coming at you. And what happens is that you move in the direction of someone who knows a lot about not that much. You become a jack of all trades. And that's something that I was very lucky the way I started out, because I started out and I worked for a vendor, and that vendor happened to deliver a software where you get exposed to the entire chain of what you have to perform as a data analyst. And I'll talk about that in some other video, but that gave me a focus automatically without me even really knowing about it, because I didn't have to make any conscious choices. I was like, okay, you're selling this Click software. If you're gonna get technical, you might as well focus on that. Why would I focus on something else? Because I learned quite quickly how useful that software could be in a lot of different areas. And that's why I just focus on that. And that allowed me to transcend into a lot of different other roles because I had had a focus over a lot of time, which had made me more of someone who knows a lot about a little. And that is when you become someone who is more of a specialist on some tools or certain processes, which people out there are looking for to enrich or improve their data analytics or data analysis, how can I say this, team or company proficiency. And of course, eventually, with time, you're going to become someone who is a multi-expert, which is, they say jack of all trades, master of many, but that takes a lot of time. So what I think is important is, in the beginning, when you guys get all this information presented, try to think about, okay, I need to find these technologies that will ensure that I learn the different skills that are necessary to become a data analyst, and try not to get dragged in by all the other cool stuff you guys hear about, because it's gonna be a lot for you guys and it's hard to move towards the specialist part of this quadrant, and you don't want to become a generalist, especially in the beginning. My blueprint is something where we need to cover the fundamentals and the data analysis process. Then I would focus on learning how to extract and manipulate data. You gotta analyze, you gotta visualize, and especially today, since the business or the industry is where it is, it's good to be exposed to some advanced analytics. So what I would focus on is, I would focus on the Google Data Analytics Certificate. I would focus on SQL, Excel, and Power BI, and Python. So let's talk about the Google Data Analytics Certificate, which is going to give you the foundation. So first off, I think it is a great starting point with good instructors and syllabus. If you've never seen it, I think they've done a good job covering the fundamentals. And if you are to get introduced to this area, I think that's a certificate which will introduce you both to the processes and some of the technical aspects of becoming a data analyst. Like I said, written here, covers the data analysis process well, with focus on personal skills, which is extremely important and easy to forget about. But don't forget the interpersonal and the personal skills, communication, presentation, trying to make other people understand all this complicated knowledge that you have is also extremely important. Exposes you to technical aspects of the data analysis job, SQL, Tableau, and R. So as an introduction, it does a great job to expose you to understanding SQL, what is SQL, data visualization through Tableau, and statistical analysis through R. And then I've written includes a capstone project, so your hands-on experience will begin with this certificate. Already during the certificate, you'll get an idea of what could a project look like. The next step is structured query language, or SQL, as you guys might know it. And it is a industry standard that you just have to know it. Depending on the company and their structure, you might not do that much SQL. You might, if it is a larger company, maybe you don't have to do it that much, but it's just something that you have to know, depending on how your access is in that company. But it's just if you communicate with data engineers, if you have to recreate some old procedure, if you talk to a vendor and they want to explain how you can extract data or just work with data and get that out of data sources, SQL just comes up back again and again. And in some data analyst roles, you have to use it every single day. I would say that the basics are quite easy to learn and enough in the beginning. You don't need to go totally crazy and think you need to learn everything about it. What is quite important is that I just want to jump in with this one, that there's a lot of great resources available online, very documented language, of course, because it is so widely accepted. Now, what I've written is that what I would focus on in the beginning, if I started out, is how do you just get the data out of data sources. You have the select clause, you have the where clause, and the and or operators. You want to know how to get data out of different tables. How do you get it out of the sources? How do you filter that? And if you need conditions, you can do those. And I think that's a good starting point, just so that you know how do you select some of the data, so you can look at it. If you have to extract from the data warehouse, it's fine, you can do that too. And as I think you could also consider looking at SQL aggregations, group by, and joins. The reason I've written that I would firstly focus on extracting data is because a lot of companies now are using a data visualization tool. So often there, if you want to get the data from the database and you want to look at it, you might do a SQL query to look at the data in the actual database. But if you want to explore, you want to twist and turn on it, you might drag that into a visualization tool. And that is why I think it's very important to understand how do you select data, how do you only select the data you need, and how do you select data with a certain condition. But what you would often do, like aggregations, a group by, if you have to do a join, often you will do that in the visualization tool, or you might even take it out and look at it in Excel. You might look at it somewhere else. So starting out, I think those SQL commands are really important. And then you can, if you have to join, you have to do aggregations, you have to do group bys in the SQL Management Studio or whatever client they have, then of course it's good to know. But today, where we are today, a lot of companies have invested in visualization tools. So the most important is that you can get it from the SQL Management Studio to the visualization tool, and you do a lot of the explorative analysis in the visualization tool. Depends on the company. You might work at a company where you need to do more data modeling. There, of course, you need to know how to do joins, but it totally depends. But that is where I would start out, because I know that a lot of companies have visualization tools. The most important is that you get it into the visualization tool. So what I've done now is I have jumped into SQL Server Management Studio, and I want to show you guys some of the SQL statements that I've said that I want to focus on and why I would focus on those instead of trying to learn all kinds of different types of SQL. So as a data analyst, a lot of times you have to look at data before you start to work on it. You want to find out what does it look like, get maybe a sample out, and just work a little bit with that before you actually start to systematically create something based on that. So what I have here is I have a regular SQL statement where I'm just going to select everything from a table, and I have a product table. So if we select that, we get all the different tables. So I would use this if I'm going to go into a table. I just want to look at what does the table look like. I have some sort of analysis object that I want to do, and I want to look at different sources. I want to look at the table, maybe in the data warehouse, what does it look like, before I decide what I want to work further on. What do I want to do analysis with? So I can look at that. We have the different columns. Okay, this is what they look like. That's fine. Then maybe I want to shorten this down, and that is where you need to know the select statement. So you need to select specific columns from a table. So if I do that, you can see now I'm going to get certain columns. So if you need to isolate which columns you need to just get a preview of from the source, you can do that. So that's how you would do that. Then I said a where clause if you want to filter this down, because right now we have the product key, the product name, and the color. What if I want only products where the color is black? Then I need to know the where clause. You can do that. Then you get the table and you only have the products where the color is black. And if you need to export that to look at that, you can also do that. That's fine. Like, I'm just showing you guys the statements that I need to get a preview of the data, which is often what you want to do when you're in the source, unless you have to do some sort of joins and data modeling or combining data. But I'm going to show you guys how I would handle that another way. Select with a where and an or clause. So I want to show the same list, but I want the colors who are black or blue. So you get a list of the different product's name, and they are black or blue. So let's say that these select statements have now given me the opportunity to figure out, okay, what kind of data is it that what does the data look like? What is the data that I want to focus on? I've gotten a preview without doing too much work. Now, if I were to do some more exploring analysis, what I would do is I would jump into Power BI. I would connect Power BI, which is what I've done here. I've connected to the exact same table in Power BI. And I have the same table on the right side, which is the product table. Now here, since I'm in a visualization tool, I'm in an analysis tool, I can do analysis on it. So I can drag out a bar chart. I get that out, and if I want to count, unique, let's say, I know I have a product key, I can drag that to the values, and I want to do a count distinct, so that we get the number of unique products. And then maybe I want to see that by different, let me get this right, by different colors. So what am I doing now? Now I'm doing exploring the data, and of course I could do that with SQL statements on database level. But in 2021, when so many companies have visualization tools, you look at the tables maybe in the data warehouse or the source, you figure out with the statements what you want to do, and then you can take that with you into a visualization tool, and you can do the actual analysis and exploration in a tool which is created for that. And this is why I would focus on those statements starting out, and then I would learn how to do some more of this type of analysis in this tool. And that way you don't have to do all the analysis in Excel, because then you are kind of at the mercy of how good you are at writing SQL. If you can focus on just finding the data, selecting the right data, doing that there, you can focus on learning a visualization tool. Then you can do the actual analysis and looking at the data here, where there's a lot more drag and drop. It's a lot easier. There's a lot of filtering, a lot more intuitive. And you can even take the statements as written as in your SQL tables and use that in Power BI or other visualization tools when you are fetching from the data warehouse into the visualization tool. If we move on to the next section, then you will see that we have Excel and Power BI. And the reason that I have chosen Excel and Power BI is because Excel is still very popular and widely used. That is nothing new to you guys there. And Power BI is something that is also quite popular and widely used, but it is increasing in popularity. And what is good to know about Excel and Power BI is that they have a lot of commonalities, a lot of common features when it comes to data transformation and their analysis expression language, which is called DAX. It's data analysis expressions, DAX, yes. So if you know how to get data automatically into Power BI and use something called Power Query, we're gonna look at it, then you also know how to do that in Excel. That means that if you know how to transform, you need to know how to get data from the database into Power BI. You know how to clean it, transform it, so that you can do continuous reporting, continuous automatic reporting. You can take that knowledge and apply that in Excel. So then you actually are kind of building a superpower both in a visualization tool and the analysis tool. And as you start to get jobs, if you see that a company uses Excel and Power BI, you will have a very strong understanding for how you can automate reporting in Power BI and in Excel, depending on the need of the end users in the company that you work in. At the same way, you have data analysis expressions, which is a language you use in Power BI to show, to do calculations, to do analysis expressions. You also use that expression language in Excel in something called Power Pivot. So that also means that if you know how to use analysis expressions in Power BI, then you also know how to do it in Excel. So that is a win-win for the company and for you to be able to do analysis in a visualization tool, and also more of a quite widely used analysis tool, which is Excel, which also has a lot of other applications. But your add-on for a company can be that you can automate a lot of the stuff that they do manually there today. Power BI as a software, is increasing in popularity. What we are looking at here is on the right side, we have the Gartner quadrant from 2021. You can clearly see Microsoft is in the leader quadrant, and they are doing very well. This is a report, comes out every year, talks about the different vendors within the analytics and business intelligence platform. So that just reflects that it is very relevant. There's a lot of companies out there that looks at this report and that want people that know how to use Microsoft tools, because it is just they go through the different vendors, they rank them, and Microsoft comes out on top. That means a lot of people invest in that because they trust in what Gartner says. On the left side, you have a Google search on the Google Trends page. You have Power BI, you have Tableau, and you have Click. And this is worldwide, and I've set it from 2010 until up until today. You can see that Tableau, has been had a lot of interest over time. You can see that is the red one. You can see the blue one is Power BI. You can see how it is increasing in terms of just search traffic, just interest for the software. So that is also why I think there's a big market. You have two tools where there's a lot of overlap between Power Query, which is used to transform the data. So it's win-win. If you learn it in Power BI, you've also learned it in Excel. two different use cases and two different ways you can apply it at a company, and it would also expose you to a lot of different situations. Same with Excel and Power BI. Use data analysis expression as a calculation language. Also win-win on the overlap there, which is why I would spend time on those. I want to demonstrate a little bit of Power Query in Power BI and Excel so you guys understand why I would focus on that, and show you guys a little bit of DAX. So what I've done here is I'm still connected to the product table, which you guys saw previously, which I was working with on the Excel examples, but I want to show you guys something. And what happened is when you go to transform data, it opens Power Query Editor, and you will see here on top it's a lot of different things you can do. You can choose columns, you can remove columns, you can keep some rows, you can keep remove rows, you can change the data types, you can join, you can do text analytics, a lot of stuff you can do. And this is data analysis, or sorry, data modeling and transformation in Power BI. You see on the transform, you can split columns, you can do replace data types, all kinds of different types of operations, add columns, etc., etc. My point is that the reason you wanna know this is because when you connect to a data source, there are certain operations that you would have to do every single time over and over if you don't do some sort of modeling or some sort of steps. Because if you add those steps one time, the next time you load data from this source, it would apply those steps automatically, and your analysis or your report would just update as is. So right now I am in Power BI and I'm connected to that source. If I go to Excel, you'll also see under data you have get data, which means you can connect to a lot of different data sources. So that means that you can connect to the same data source as you connected in Power BI, and you see here you have launch Power Query Editor. And this launches more or less the same data and transformation tool. You see you have the home tab, you have the different functions, you can transform, you can add columns. So it means that if you know how to transform and you know how to automate a lot of the data modeling and the necessary data cleansing steps that you would have to do, you would have to do that every single time, repeating as you get data from the database or data warehouse if you did it manually. But if you know how to use Power Query, you can automate a lot of those steps in Excel and in Power BI, which gives you a lot of flexibility. You can do it in the visualization tool, you can do it in Excel. If you work for a company, you can say, hey, in this case, I think it's best to do it in Excel. In this case, it's best to do it in Power BI. But you still know how to apply, model, and play around and work and prepare the data in both types of platforms. And if you think about all the companies that use Excel and all the companies that use Power BI, think about all the places where you can apply yourself and where you can see data analysis from two totally different perspectives in an automated fashion. So that's one thing that I think is huge. It's something that I would definitely pick up on and I would focus on. And it all comes back to, how many different places can you appeal to with your skills and bringing value without having to learn a lot of different technologies from a lot of different places. So that is one thing that I think is really good. You have the Power Query data transformations, which is applicable both to Excel and Power BI, and you get a lot of overlap. One thing that I also want to show you guys is if we jump into Power BI, I also talked about DAX, which stands for Data Analysis Expressions. So if you look here, we have some different expressions. So I have all products. You can see I have distinct count product key. So DAX is a analysis expression language, and in that expression there's something going on, but it is an expression created to solve a specific case, which is to count unique product keys. So I also have another expression, which is basically I'm counting all products, which is the previous calculation you just saw, but I'm saying I only want to count the ones that are black. And on this one, I'm doing another DAX expression, and don't get too focused on the expression right now, but I'm doing a calculate, which basically means I can filter down a previous expression, and I'm saying I only want to count the blue ones. So if you want to, for whatever reason, you want to compare these, if you couldn't use DAX to isolate the calculation on one thing, you would have to filter between different filters to get the same, to be able to see what the value is. So let me show you. So let's drag out a KPI. You have all products. This is how many products are in the product table. If I wanted to know how many of those are black and how many of those are blue, if I didn't have DAX, then you can see I would have to take the KPI that says all products, and I would have to first hit the filter and say give me only the black ones, then hit the filter, give me only blue ones. That's the only way to jump between. But if you know an analysis expression language, which they use in all softwares, you know, you have set analysis in Click, you have level of details expression in Tableau. In Power BI, you have DAX. So let me drag out the filter for color. So if I have the color here now, see now, if I click black, all products filter down to 133, and only black products stay where they are because they are locked on that. If I click blue, if I click blue, that turns to 28, and only blue products turns to 28. So because I know some DAX, because I know some of the analysis expression language, I can create other types of calculations based on logic, which enables you to do much more different types of analysis. And the reason why I would focus on that is, once again, if you know how to use it in Power BI, guess what? You also use DAX in Excel. So if you want to use the same types of analysis expressions in Excel, which is based on Power Query, so you have actually automated the integration, you know how to transform the data, you know how to use analysis expressions, and you can use them both in Excel, both in Power BI. You know, it's just it's just such a win-win, and you can apply it so many different places. And of course, you have one community to learn this from, which is the Microsoft community. You don't have to spread yourself that much, which comes back to the whole thing which I talk about, which is focus. So that is why I think Excel and Power BI is a great combination if you want to master the visualization and analysis part that we looked at previously on the pyramid, because there's so much overlap and you are covering some very, very important functions and features which you want to know as a data analyst. The last thing that I want to touch on is, you know, the top part, which is Python. And the reason I've chosen Python is that when I have looked at R and Python, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert at R or Python, but when I have tried it out and you know, learned some of the basics, I have perceived Python as simpler and easier to learn when you are starting out. That's how it was for me. It is, you know, widely used and also adopted in production environments. When you are starting out within data analysis, it is important to get exposed to real situations in production environments so you can get that experience that you want as soon as possible. And that is also why I think Python is good to start to look at. You know, when I looked into this, I perceived R as more of a statistical programming software, where Python was more used in machine learning scenarios. And you know, I just think that is kind of what I would focus on. I think machine learning is more interesting than the statistics. But it depends. You know, there's no clear-cut answer, right? Because this is something that kind of sits on top as the advanced analysis part of the pyramid. But this is what I would choose if I started out today. Like I have, you know, rather personal preference placed in here, but in my background, you know, coming from a very business side, I wasn't a naturally good coder. I would have started out with Python. You know, what would I focus on here? You know, you have pandas, data manipulation, and scikit-learn, which is scikit-learn, which is more towards machine learning. And to be honest, those are the ones that I've tried out the most. You know, how do I use different libraries? You know, how do I execute some of them? Just some basic stuff, so that I know that. So if I ever were to join a company where I had to, you know, get more into that, I know where to begin. So let's talk about, you know, you have the process, and here it's also important to not do everything at once. So I would probably start out with the Google Data Analytics certificate, spend a lot of time, do it faster than what they say, and just look at that as an introduction to this, and try not to do too much other stuff at the same time, because I need to get introduced to it. Then I would start to look at structured query language and Excel and Power BI, and those two, since I focus on Microsoft, since they are quite close, there's a lot of overlap there, then I would focus more on that. And maybe at the end, I would add Python after I felt that I was competent enough to apply for jobs with those three first brackets covered. Now, in terms of portfolio, if I was going to make a portfolio today, if I had gotten, you know, fairly long into SQL and start to look at Excel and Power BI, I would start out to try and make a basic one, and then instead of jumping off and doing other things, I would just keep learning a little bit about those, because as you learn more about let's say Power Query transformations and data manipulation in Excel or Power BI, you could add that into portfolio. As you learn more about DAX, you can do more advanced analysis or more different types of scenario analysis. You can bring that into your portfolio. So if you get a focus on the technologies, instead of trying to learn a lot of different things, you can focus on your showcase portfolio and make that better and better and better and iterate on that, instead of trying to pick other skills. And once again, that is what I would do today. When I actually got my first job, even though it was in sales, I didn't have a portfolio like you guys make today, and I think a lot of you guys start out on a much better place than I did. But I actually had a YouTube channel which I made way back, and I made 3 videos which were in ClickView because that was the vendor Click, and it was how to create a bar chart, how to create a line chart, and one more thing. And I wish I had that channel still running, but I have deleted it because I was so embarrassed. But it did get me the job, and I remember the guy who hired me was like, this guy actually has started a YouTube channel to show that he knows how to use that software, and he thought it was so cool. So I had a very basic portfolio, but it showed a little bit extra, and a lot of you guys have much better portfolios than I have. But try and keep that focus and iterate on the portfolio with a focus, instead of trying to make the portfolio about everything, and it just becomes a lot of different things without any real direction. So that is how I would become a data analyst in 2021 if I could start today. Now I just want to end this off and say the purpose of this video is not to tell you guys that you guys have to do exactly what I have said and these are the technologies and this is what you have to do. You might already be well on your way with some technologies that you have selected and some certificates or courses that have helped you get that foundation. This is just what I would do, just to ensure that I have that focus, I cover the right bases, and I get some overlap or some win-win on some of the technology choices. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos on data and analytics, then subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hey guys, my name is Ali, and I'm a data analytics manager. I think